Tonight, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to fix anything or solve anything or become anyone different than who you already are. There is nowhere you need to get to before you're allowed to rest. You've arrived already, just by lying down, just by being here at the end of another long day. So let your shoulders drop a little. Let the weight of your head sink fully into the pillow. And if there's a name moving quietly through your mind right now, a face, a voice, a conversation you keep turning over, you don't have to push it away. It's welcome here too. We're not going to fight it tonight, because you know the feeling. The house is quiet. The lights are off. Your body is finally still after everything the day asked of it. And just as you start to drift, they arrive. The person you can't stop thinking about. Maybe it's someone who left. Maybe it's someone who's still here but somehow feels far away. Maybe it's a conversation that ended badly, or one that never really ended at all, and your mind keeps replaying it, editing it, imagining the thing you wish you'd said. And the more tired you get, the louder it seems to grow. Perhaps you've felt this more nights than you'd like to admit. That strange helplessness of wanting to sleep, needing to sleep, and finding that your own mind won't let you. It keeps returning to the same doorway, the same memory, the same ache. And somewhere underneath it, there's a quieter fear that maybe something is wrong with you for not being able to let this go by now. There isn't. I want to say that clearly before we go any further. There is nothing wrong with you. A mind that keeps returning to someone is not a broken mind. It's a mind that cared, that connected, that is still trying to make sense of something that mattered. Tonight, we're going to sit with that together, not to defeat it, not to force them out of your head by morning, just to understand why the mind does this, to soften around it and to slowly loosen its grip, thought by thought, until there's nothing left to hold and you can finally rest. If this is the kind of quiet you come here for, you're always welcome to stay a while and to come back on the nights you need a softer place to land. But you don't need to do anything with that right now. Right now, there's only this. The dark room, the sound of my voice, and the slow work of setting something down. So let's begin where you actually are. Not where you think you should be by now, where you are. You're lying here, and part of you is still with them. That's the honest truth of it. Some part of your attention is turned toward a person who may not even know you're thinking of them tonight. It could be someone you loved and lost and never quite finished loving. It could be a friendship that quietly dissolved and you're still not sure how or why. It could be someone who hurt you, and the strange thing is that the mind returns just as stubbornly to the ones who hurt us as to the ones we miss. It could be someone you barely knew, but who touched something in you and left before you understood what it was. The details are yours, but the shape of it is almost universal. There is a person, and there is a space where they used to be, and your mind keeps reaching into that space to see if they're still there, over and over, like a tongue returning to the place where a tooth used to be. You know it's empty. You keep checking anyway. And notice, if you can, how the mind does this. It rarely comes at you all at once. It comes in fragments. A particular way they laughed. The sound of their name in someone else's mouth today. a song that was playing once when things were still good. A single sentence from the last conversation sharpened now into something that cuts. The mind doesn't replay the whole story, it replays the pieces that still have a charge in them, and it plays them on a loop, as if by turning them over enough times you might finally wring some peace out of them. But peace doesn't come. That's the maddening part. You'd think that after the 100th time, the 1000th time, the memory would wear smooth like a stone in a river. Sometimes it does, slowly. Over months you can barely feel passing. But on a night like this, it doesn't feel smooth at all. It feels sharp and close, as if it happened this evening, rather than weeks or years ago. And you lie here, wondering why your own mind seems determined to keep you awake with it. Let me offer you something gentle to hold on to right at the start. The fact that you can't stop thinking about them is not a sign that you're weak or foolish or stuck. It's not evidence that you'll feel this way forever. It's not proof that you made a mistake or that they were the only one or that you'll never move on. It's something much simpler and much more human than any of those stories. It's a mind doing exactly what minds are built to do. And once you understand what it's actually doing and why, the whole thing begins to feel less like a curse and more like a wave you can learn to float on until it passes. So we're going to take our time tonight. We're going to look slowly and without judgment at why the person you can't stop thinking about has taken up residence in your mind. We'll look at the machinery of it, the old wiring underneath the ache. We'll look at how much of the suffering is the loss itself and how much is the story you tell about the loss. We'll sit with an old teaching or two, the kind that has helped people set down heavy things for thousands of years, and we'll find, gently, some ways to let the mind rest without having to win the argument it keeps having with itself. There's no rush. If you fall asleep in the middle of any of this, that's not a failure. That's the whole point. You have my permission to drift off before we reach the end. The words will still be here. I'll keep talking softly into the dark, and you can follow as far as you like and let go whenever your body is ready. For now, just breathe, not in any special way. Just notice that you're breathing, that you have been this whole time, without trying. The breath doesn't need your effort. It's been keeping you alive all day while you were busy with everything else. Let it keep going now, slow and unforced, and let it be the one thing tonight you don't have to think about. And as you breathe, let's begin to understand the mind that won't let them go. Here is the first thing worth knowing, and it may be the most freeing thing I can tell you all night. The mind is not holding on to this person because you're doing something wrong. It's holding on because you're doing something the mind was designed to do. It finishes things, or rather, it can't stand to leave them unfinished, and it will keep a thing alive, keep it warm and turning until it feels finished enough to put down. There's an old observation in psychology about this, and it began, of all places, in a cafe. Nearly 100 years ago, a young researcher named Bluma Zygarnik noticed something about the waiters where she sat. They could hold an astonishing number of orders in their heads, complicated ones, table after table, all without writing anything down. But the moment a bill was paid and the meal was over, the whole order vanished from their memory, as if it had never existed. The finished thing was gone. The unfinished thing had stayed vivid and complete right up until the end. What she found when she looked closer was something you already know in your body, even if you've never had a name for it. The mind clings to what is incomplete, an interrupted task, an unanswered question, a story without an ending. These press on the attention in a way that finished things never do. You can watch a whole film and forget it by the weekend, but leave one scene unresolved, one question hanging, and it will follow you for days. Now think about what an unfinished relationship is. Think about what it is to lose someone before you were ready, or to be left with words unsaid, or to never quite understand why it ended. It is the most unfinished thing there is. It's a story with the last pages torn out, and your mind, faithful and tireless, keeps flipping back to the tear, looking for the ending that isn't there. It's not torturing you. In its own clumsy way, it's trying to help. It's trying to close the loop so you can finally be free of it. This is why the conversations you replay are so often the ones that ended badly, or the ones that never got to end at all. A goodbye that was clean and kind, where everything was said, tends to fade. It hurts, and then it softens, and then it becomes a memory you can hold without bleeding. But the goodbye that was cut short, the argument that stopped mid-sentence, the message left unanswered, the door that closed while you were still mid-thought, these the mind cannot file away. There's no ending to file. So it keeps the whole thing open on the desk, and every quiet moment it picks the file back up. You can feel this, can't you, in the specific shape of what your mind returns to. It's rarely the good, settled memories that keep you awake. It's the loose threads, the thing you wish you'd asked, the apology that never came, or the one you never gave. The version of the conversation where you were braver, or kinder, or where you finally understood each other. Your mind runs these variations again and again, not out of cruelty, but because each one is an attempt to write the missing ending, to finish the sentence, to close the loop and set it down. And here's the tender trap in it. The loop cannot actually be closed that way. You can rehearse the perfect thing you should have said 10,000 times, and it will never be said because the moment is gone and the person isn't in the room. You can imagine the apology, the reconciliation, the understanding in exquisite detail, and none of it reaches them. The mind keeps trying to complete the story from the inside, alone in the dark, and it can't, because the story was never yours to complete alone. It took two people to open this loop, and some loops don't get closed, they get released instead. They get set down, still open, when you finally understand that you were never going to finish them by thinking harder. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, I only want you to feel the difference this makes, because there's a story you might have been telling yourself quietly for a long time. The story goes like this: I can't stop thinking about them, therefore something is wrong with me. And we can replace it right now with something truer. I can't stop thinking about them because my mind is trying to finish something that mattered. That's all. It's not weakness. It's the same faithful machinery that let those waiters carry a dozen orders in their heads. It's just aimed at something that can't be carried the same way. Feel how that lands. There's nothing broken in you. There's a loop still open, and a mind that hates open loops, doing its patient, exhausting best to close one that can only be released. When you stop fighting the mind for doing this, when you stop stacking shame on top of the ache, something in the whole system loosens by a degree. You're no longer angry at yourself for thinking of them. You just notice, there's the open loop again. There's my mind reaching for the ending. Of course it is. That's what it does. And notice, too, that the reaching tends to get worse at exactly this hour. There's a reason for that as well. All day long, the world hands your mind other loops to hold. The message that needs answering, the task at work, the conversation with the person in front of you. The thousand small, unfinished things of an ordinary day crowd in and take up the room. Your attention has somewhere else to go. But at night, when the day's small loops are set aside, when the room is dark and nothing is left demanding your focus, the biggest open loop rises to the surface, the one that never got its ending. It doesn't grow louder at night because the night is against you. It grows louder because everything else has finally gone quiet, and it's the last thing still turning. So, in a strange way, the fact that they come to you at night is a sign of how much you've already set down. You've put down everything else. This is simply the last thing left, and it happens to be the heaviest. There's something almost gentle in that, if you let yourself see it. Your mind isn't ambushing you, it's just showing you what's still unfinished, now that the noise has stopped. Let me invite you to try something, lightly, with no pressure at all. The next time the loop begins tonight, the replay, the imagined conversation, the reaching for the ending, see if you can meet it with a single, quiet sentence. Not a command, not get out of my head, which only ever makes the thing louder, just a soft recognition. There's the open loop, and then let it be there. You don't have to close it tonight. You don't have to solve it. You only have to notice it for what it is, and let it turn, the way you might let a moth circle a lamp without leaping up to catch it. Because the loop loses some of its power the moment you stop believing it's a problem you must solve before dawn. It was never a problem to be solved before dawn. It's a wound that closes on its own schedule, slowly, from the inside, the way all wounds do, whether or not you keep checking them. And every time you resist the urge to pick at it, to reopen it by rehearsing it one more time, you give it a little more of the quiet it needs to close. You are not required to finish this story tonight. You're allowed to leave it open on the desk and turn off the light and trust that a story left alone in the dark does not get worse. It settles, it waits, it will still be there in the morning if you truly need it, and you will find, more mornings than you expect, that it has quietly shrunk in the night without any help from you at all. So let the loop turn if it wants to. You don't have to grab it. You don't have to chase the ending. You can lie here and let it circle, softer and slower, while the rest of you begins, at last, to rest. There's a distinction I want to offer you now, and it's one of the oldest and kindest ideas I know. It comes from an old teaching about arrows. The teaching says that when something painful happens to us, we are struck by an arrow, and that arrow hurts. That much is simply life. But then the teaching says most of us reach back, take a second arrow, and drive it into the same wound ourselves. And the second arrow is the one that does the lasting damage. Let me translate that out of the language of arrows and into the language of your actual night. The first arrow is real. Someone you cared about is gone, or distant, or changed. That's a genuine loss, and it genuinely hurts, and no teaching in the world is going to tell you it shouldn't. The ache of missing someone is not a malfunction. It's the cost of having loved, and it's an honest cost, and you're allowed to feel every bit of it. That first arrow you didn't choose. It landed. It hurts. That's real. But listen closely to what your mind does in the hours after. It doesn't just feel the loss, it builds on it. It says, I shouldn't still feel this way. It says, what does it mean about me that I can't get over them? It says, they've probably forgotten me completely. They're sleeping fine. Why am I the one lying awake? It says, I'll never feel this way about anyone again. Or worse, I'll feel this way forever. It rehearses the future, dark and certain. It replays the past, sharpened and cruel. Every one of those is a second arrow, and you'll notice, if you watch honestly, that the second arrows hurt far more and far longer than the first. The loss is one thing, the story you tell about the loss is another, and almost all of what keeps you awake night after night is the story, not the loss. The missing itself is quiet. It's a kind of soft heaviness, an absence with a shape. You could almost lie down inside it and rest. It's the commentary around it that won't let you rest. The endless self-interrogation, the meaning-making, the verdicts you keep passing on yourself. Why can't I move on? What's wrong with me? What does this say about my life? Those aren't the loss. Those are arrows 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you're the one holding the bow. I'm not telling you this to blame you. Please hear me. Nobody chooses the second arrow on purpose. The mind fires it automatically, out of habit, out of an old belief that if it can just think hard enough about the pain, it can somehow get ahead of it, control it, prevent it from ever hurting this way again. The second arrow feels like problem solving. It masquerades as taking the situation seriously, but it doesn't solve anything. It just keeps the wound open and adds fresh pain to the old one. And the first step toward rest is simply learning to see the difference, to feel the first arrow, honestly, and to notice the hand reaching back for the second, and to let that second arrow, just for tonight, stay in the quiver. So let's practice the seeing right here. Bring the person to mind gently, just for a moment. Notice the plain feeling of missing them. Where does it actually live in your body? Maybe a weight in the chest, maybe a tightness in the throat, or a hollowness lower down, somewhere behind the ribs. That sensation, whatever it is the first arrow, and it's clean. It has no words in it. It's just a feeling, and feelings left alone move through and pass the way weather passes. A feeling that is only felt and not fed with story rarely lasts more than a handful of minutes before it begins to shift on its own. Now notice what the mind wants to add. Notice it reaching for the words. It shouldn't be this way. I should be over this. This proves something bad about me. Watch the second arrow being drawn. And here's the practice, the whole practice. And it's so simple, it might disappoint you. You just don't pick it up. You let the thought arise because you can't stop thoughts from arising, and you let it go by without grabbing it and driving it in. You return to the plain feeling, the weight in the chest, the honest ache with no story attached, and you stay with that instead. This is not about suppressing anything. I want to be careful here because there's a false version of this that goes, just don't think about it, and that never works, and it isn't what we're doing. We're not refusing the pain, we're refusing the extra pain. We're letting the true thing be true. The loss is real, and it hurts, while gently declining the 100 cruel additions the mind wants to make. You are allowed to miss them without also concluding that you're broken. You are allowed to feel sad without also deciding the sadness is permanent. The feeling and the verdict are two different things, and you can keep the feeling and set down the verdict. An old Stoic once wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. He'd noticed the same thing 2,000 years ago, lying awake in his own nights, no doubt. So much of what tears at us has not happened and may never happen. They will never think of me again. I've wasted the best years I had. I'll grow old alone with this. None of that is happening right now, in this bed, in this dark. Right now there is only a person breathing under a warm blanket, missing someone. That's the whole of the reality. The rest is the mind painting the walls of the future in the darkest colors it can find, and then grieving the picture it painted as if the paint were real. Come back to the reality. It's smaller than the story, always. The reality is, I am here, I am safe, my body is tired, and I miss someone I cared about. Every part of that is bearable. You can lie inside that sentence and breathe. It's the story on top of it, the second arrow and the third and the fourth, that becomes unbearable. And the mercy of it is that the story is the part you can set down, the loss you have to carry a while, the story you can put down tonight. Let me give you something to do with your attention when the second arrow starts to fly, because it will, probably more than once before you sleep. When you catch the mind saying something like, "I'll never get over this," see if you can gently add 2 words to the front of it, not to argue with the thought, just to loosen it. I'm having the thought that I'll never get over this. Feel the difference. I'll never get over this is a prison sentence delivered as fact. I'm having the thought that I'll never get over this is just weather. It's a thought passing through, one of the many thousands the mind produces in a day, most of which turn out to be wrong. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to fight it either. You just have to see it for what it is. A thought, not a verdict, not a prophecy, a thought. And the beautiful thing is that the moment you see a thought as a thought, you're no longer fully inside it. There's a little space now between you and the thing that was hurting you. You are the one watching the thought, not the thought itself. That small space is where rest becomes possible. Not because the loss is gone, but because you've stopped firing arrows into it. You've let the first arrow be the only arrow, and one arrow, felt honestly and left alone, is something a person can survive and soften around and eventually carry lightly. So tonight, let there be only the first arrow, the real one, the honest ache of a heart that loved something and lost it. That one you can hold. Lay down the bow. You don't need it in the dark. Nothing here is attacking you. There's only an old feeling passing through, and a tired body that deserves its rest, and a mind that can finally, for a few hours, stop reaching back for arrows it was never meant to throw. Let me tell you an old story. It's a very simple one, and people have been passing it quietly from hand to hand for a long time, the way you'd pass a smooth stone. There's no need to hold it tightly. Just let it settle over you as you listen. Two monks were walking home along a muddy road after heavy rain. They came to a river crossing where the water was running high and brown. And there they found a young woman standing at the edge, dressed in fine clothes, unable to cross without ruining them, unsure and a little afraid. The older of the two monks, without much fuss, simply lifted her up, carried her through the water in his arms, set her down gently on the far bank, and walked on. The younger monk was scandalized. Monks of their order were not supposed to so much as touch a woman, and here his companion had picked one up and carried her across a river. He didn't say anything at first, but he thought about it. He walked, and he thought, and the more he walked, the more he thought, and the afternoon wore on and turned toward evening, and still he was turning it over. How could he have done that? What was he thinking? What will people say? It was improper. It was wrong. On and on his mind went, mile after muddy mile. Finally, hours later, as they were nearly home, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He burst out with all of it. How could you have carried that woman across the river? You know we're not permitted to do that. What were you thinking? And the old monk looked at him, a little puzzled, and said, gently, I set her down at the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? Let that sit for a moment. There's no lesson I need to hammer onto the end of it. You already feel where it touches. The older monk did the thing that needed doing, and then he let it go. He set the woman down on the bank, and she left his arms and his mind at the same moment. But the younger monk carried her the whole way home, in his thoughts, long after she was gone from sight. She was no weight at all on his back. She was an enormous weight on his mind. And the whole time, he thought he was carrying a problem, when really he was just carrying his own thinking about it. You know this feeling. Of course you do. It's why the story reaches you. The person you can't stop thinking about in the most literal sense is not here. They left the river a long time ago. In the actual physical world of this bedroom, there is no one but you. The weight you feel isn't them. It's you, still carrying them, mile after mile, long after the crossing is behind you. And like the young monk, you might have mistaken all that carrying for something noble, or necessary, or unavoidable. You might have believed that to stop carrying them would be to betray what they meant to you, or to admit you never really cared. But look at the old monk again. He didn't carry the woman for hours to prove he was kind. His kindness was in the carrying, when it was needed, and then in the setting down when it was done. The setting down was not a betrayal of the act. It was the completion of it. He helped her across, and then he let her have her own road, and he kept his. That's not coldness. That's freedom. And it's a freedom that was available to the young monk the entire time, every single step, if only he'd noticed that he was the one still holding on. I'm not going to pretend that setting down a person is as simple as setting down a stranger at a river. A love, a friendship, years of your life. These are not a 5-minute crossing. But the mechanism the story points to is exactly the same. And it's exactly the mechanism keeping you awake. There is what happened, which is over. And there is your carrying of what happened, which is happening right now, tonight, in this bed, entirely inside you. The first you cannot change, the second is yours. And the question the old monk asks so gently is the question worth sitting with as you lie here. Not why did it happen, not why did they leave, but simply, softly, why am I still carrying this right now when the river is so far behind me? Notice, and this is important, that the old monk doesn't scold the young one. There's no contempt in the question. It's almost amused, almost tender. Why are you still carrying her? As if to say, you poor tired soul, you've been hauling this all afternoon and you didn't have to. You could have set her down at the water like I did and enjoyed the whole walk home. So let the question come to you in that same tone tonight. Not you, idiot. Why can't you let go, which is just another arrow? But gently, oh, I'm still carrying this. I've been carrying it for miles. I can set it down whenever I'm ready. It's been my own arms this whole time. And here's the quiet permission inside the story. The thing I most want you to take from it. Setting them down does not erase them. The old monk didn't undo his kindness by forgetting the woman. She was still helped. The crossing still happened. It was still good. He simply stopped carrying the memory of it as a burden. In the same way, letting a person rest in your mind does not delete what they meant to you. The love was still real. The years still happened. They still mattered. And they always will. You're not being asked to pretend none of it occurred. You're only being invited to stop carrying it in your arms every single night, as though the crossing were still happening. As though you were still in the middle of the river when in truth you reached the far bank a long time ago and it's safe now to walk on. Some nights the carrying feels like loyalty. It feels like if you stopped thinking about them, you'd be letting them go completely, and something in you can't bear that. So you keep them alive the only way you know how, by turning them over and over in the dark. But consider gently that this is a heavy way to honor someone. The young monk's endless thinking didn't help the woman at all. She was already dry and safe on the far side, walking her own road, probably not thinking of him at all. His carrying served no one. It only wore him out. And your carrying tonight, this exhausted turning over at midnight, it isn't reaching the person either. They aren't in the room. They can't feel it. The only person it touches is you, and it's keeping you from your rest. So you're allowed to set it down. Not forever, if forever feels like too much. Just for tonight, just for these next few hours. You can pick it all back up in the morning if you decide you need to. But right now, in this dark, you can do what the old monk did. You can notice that the crossing is behind you, that your arms are tired, that no one is asking you to keep carrying this, least of all, the person themselves. And you can set it down on the bank, gently, with something almost like tenderness, and walk on towards sleep with your arms finally empty and light. The river is far behind you now. You made it across. You can put them down. By now, you might be quietly wondering something underneath all of this. If the loop doesn't help, if the carrying only wears me out, if the second arrow just deepens the wound, then why does my mind keep doing it? Why would it work against me like this, night after night? It's a fair question, and the answer is tender, and I think it changes everything about how you relate to the part of you that won't let go. Your mind is not working against you, it's trying in the only way it knows to keep you safe. The looping isn't malice, it's love, wearing the clumsy costume of fear. Think about what the mind is actually made for. For a very long time in a much harder world than this bedroom, the mind's whole job was to keep the body alive. And one of the main ways it did that was by remembering pain so it wouldn't happen again. If something hurt you, the mind held on to it, turned it over, studied it, so that next time you'd see it coming. That's not a flaw, that's the reason your ancestors survived long enough for you to be here at all. The mind that forgot the danger died. The mind that kept replaying the danger lived. And you inherited the one that replays. So now something has hurt you. Someone you opened yourself to is gone or changed or turned out to be different than you hoped. To your ancient, faithful mind, this registers as a wound, a real one, and it responds the only way it has ever known how. It replays the event over and over, scanning it for the lesson. What went wrong? What did I miss? What were the warning signs? How do I make sure this never happens again? That is what the loop actually is, underneath the ache. It's not your mind torturing you. It's your mind standing guard at the door all night, terrified that if it stops watching, you'll be hurt like this again. Picture it, if it helps, as an overprotective guard. Not a cruel one, a devoted one. One who loves you so much and was so frightened by how badly this hurt that it has decided never to sleep again until it's certain you're safe. It paces the perimeter of your memory all night. It keeps holding up the same painful images and asking, "Are you sure? Are you sure we're safe now? Did we learn the lesson?" Every time you try to rest, it shakes you gently awake with another replay, not to hurt you, but because it genuinely believes that its vigilance is the only thing keeping you from being wounded again. Now, how do you calm a frightened guard? Not by shouting at it, not by calling it stupid or telling it to shut up or fighting it. That only convinces the guard that the danger is real and that it needs to try even harder. You calm a frightened guard the way you'd calm any frightened creature that loves you. You turn to it gently and you thank it. You say, "I see you. I know you're trying to protect me. I know how scared you were by how much this hurt. Thank you for watching so carefully." And then, just as gently, you tell it the truth it's too frightened to see on its own. The danger has passed. We're not at the river anymore. We're home in a warm bed and we're safe, and you're allowed to rest now too. This sounds almost too soft to work, I know, but something real happens when you stop treating the looping part of your mind as an enemy and start treating it as a scared, loyal part of yourself that needs reassurance. The whole inner argument changes shape, because most of your sleepless nights aren't really you against the memory. They're you against the part of you that's holding the memory, both of you exhausted, both of you afraid, fighting each other in the dark. And the moment you stop fighting that part, the The moment you put an arm around it instead, there's no one left to struggle with. The guard can finally sit down. The vigilance can finally soften. You've stopped being two people at war and become one tired person, allowed to rest. There's a gentler truth hiding in here too, and it's worth saying plainly. The reason this person is so hard to stop thinking about is not that something is wrong with you. It's that you're someone who loves deeply, who takes connection seriously, whose heart doesn't treat people as disposable. The very sensitivity that's keeping you awake tonight is the same sensitivity that let you love them so fully in the first place. You can't have one without the other. A heart that couldn't be kept awake by loss would be a heart that couldn't be filled by love. So even the sleeplessness, even the loop, is evidence of something good in you. It's the cost, paid in advance, of being a person capable of caring this much. That's not a wound to be ashamed of. That's a depth to be gentle with. So try tonight, turning toward the guard instead of away from it. When the loop starts again, when the mind holds up the painful image one more time and asks, "Are you sure we're safe?" Don't argue and don't flee. Just answer it kindly, the way you'd answer a frightened child who's crept into your room at midnight. I know it hurt. Thank you for looking out for me. We're safe now. You can rest. You might have to say it many times. The guard has been on duty a long while and won't stand down at the first word. But each time you meet the fear with warmth instead of war, it loosens a little. The pacing slows. The grip eases. And somewhere in there, without your forcing it, the vigilance melts into something softer. And the part of you that's been standing watch all these nights finally lies down beside you and closes its eyes. You don't have to fix the guard. You don't have to make it perfect or make it never worry again. You only have to stop fighting it tonight. Let it be frightened and let it be loved at the same time. Both can be true. The scared part of you and the calm part of you can lie here in the same body, breathing the same slow breath, and neither one has to win. They can simply rest together in the dark until morning. And maybe that's what letting go really is, not slamming a door on the person, not ripping them out of your mind by force, but this quieter thing. Turning toward the frightened part of yourself that's been carrying them and saying so softly it's almost not words at all, "I've got us now. You can stop watching. You can finally sleep. I want to give you something now that's less an idea and more a place to stand. Because understanding why the mind loops is one thing and it helps. But on a hard night, you also need somewhere to actually put your attention, something to do with yourself besides being pulled around by the thoughts. So let's find that place. Consider the sky for a moment. Not tonight's sky, just the idea of sky. Weather moves across it constantly. Clouds gather, storms roll through, rain falls, the light changes 100 times a day. Some days the sky is nothing but grey, edge to edge, and it feels like it will never be blue again. But the sky itself is never harmed by any of it. The storm doesn't damage the sky. The sky simply holds the weather, lets it pass through, and remains. The bluest day and the blackest storm happen in the very same sky, and the sky is untouched by both. Your thoughts are the weather. You are the sky. The thought they're never coming back is weather. The thought I'll always feel this way is weather. The memory that just surfaced, sharp and bright and painful, is weather. It moves through. It feels enormous while it's overhead, the way a storm fills the whole world when you're standing under it. But you are not the storm. You are the wide, quiet space the storm is passing through. And that space, the awareness in which all these thoughts appear, has never once been damaged by a single one of them. Not tonight, not on your worst night, ever. The thoughts came and they were terrible, and they passed, and here you still are, still aware, still whole, still the sky. This is what people mean, I think, when they talk about the difference between having a thought and being had by it. When you're lost in the loop, you're inside the storm, soaked, blown around, certain that the grey is all there is. But the moment you remember the sky, the moment you notice I am the one aware of this thought, something shifts. You step back just slightly from the weather. You're still getting rained on maybe, but now there's a you that's watching the rain, and that watcher is calm and spacious and utterly unhurt. The thought is still there. You're just no longer trapped inside it. There's air between you and it now. There's sky. You don't have to make the weather stop. That's the mistake we always make, isn't it? We think peace means clear skies, no more painful thoughts, the storm finally gone. So we fight the clouds, we try to force them away, and of course we can't. Because you cannot bully weather out of a sky, and the fighting is just more storm. Real peace isn't a cleared sky. Real peace is remembering you're the sky at all, so that the weather can do whatever it needs to do and you can rest right through it, the way the sky rests through every storm that's ever crossed it. So here's the practice, and it's soft, and you can do it lying exactly as you are. When a thought about them comes, don't try to stop it. Instead, just notice it and quietly name what it is, not the content, the category. Oh, that's a memory. Or, that's the mind planning a conversation that won't happen. Or, that's the fear about the future again. You're not judging the thought. You're just gently naming it as it drifts across, the way you might name clouds. There's a memory. There's a worry. There's the ache. And each time you name one, you're standing in the sky, watching, instead of being blown around inside the weather. If naming feels like too much effort, and some nights it will, then come down out of your head entirely and into your body, into the room. This is always available and it always works, because your body is only ever here, in the present, never in the past with them, and never in the imagined future. So, feel the bed beneath you. Feel the actual weight of your body pressing down into the mattress, the places where you're supported, held up by something solid that asks nothing of you. Feel the blanket over you, its weight, its warmth, the simple animal comfort of being covered and warm in the dark. Notice the temperature of the air on whatever part of your face is uncovered. Notice the quiet sounds of the room, the house, the night outside. Notice your own breath moving, without your help, in and out. None of these things are in the loop. The weight of the blanket is not in the argument you keep replaying. The cool air on your cheek has nothing to do with the person who left. The soft dark of the room is not the past and not the future. It's just here, just now, just this. And every time you place your attention on something real and present like this, you step out of the weather and stand for a moment in the sky. You won't stay there. You'll get pulled back into a thought within seconds, probably. That's completely fine. That's not failure. The practice is not staying in the sky forever. The practice is simply noticing, gently, when you've been swept into the weather, and stepping back into the sky again, and again, and again, as many times as it takes. Each return is the whole practice. There is no version of this you can do wrong. Do you see how different this is from trying to stop thinking about them? We're not trying to stop anything. We gave that up a while ago. We're just changing where you stand. Not fighting to empty the sky of clouds, which can't be done, but remembering that you are the sky and not the clouds, which changes everything while requiring almost nothing. The thoughts get to keep coming. You just stop being at war with them and start watching them pass from the wide and quiet place that was never really in danger to begin with. And the strange, lovely thing is that thoughts you stop fighting tend to move faster. A cloud you grab at and struggle with hangs around, because the struggling feeds it. A cloud you simply let drift across the sky does what clouds do. It drifts across and it goes. The memory you stop wrestling loses its grip more quickly than the memory you fight. So even your letting go, done gently, does the work that all your effort couldn't. The weather clears fastest in the sky that stopped trying to clear it. So lie here as the sky tonight. Let the weather of them move through you, memory and ache and worry, and don't lift a finger against any of it. Just watch it pass, name it kindly if you can, sink into your body and the warm dark of the room when you can't. There is so much more of you than the storm. There always was. And that wide, quiet, unhurt part of you, the part that's simply aware, the part that's watching these very words move by like clouds right now, that part is already at peace and always has been, and is more than enough to carry you gently down into sleep. There's something about a sleepless, aching night that convinces you it will last forever. The pain feels not just big, but permanent, as though this is simply how things are now and how they'll always be. You can't quite imagine a version of yourself that doesn't carry this. The mind, in its grief, quietly assumes that the way it feels tonight is the way it will feel from now on. And that assumption, more than almost anything, is what makes a hard night feel unbearable. Not the pain itself, but the belief that the pain is the new permanent weather. So I want to tell you something true, and I want you to let it in even though the aching part of you will resist it. This feeling is already changing. Right now, as you lie here, it is moving. It is not a fixed thing. Nothing about it is fixed. The very intensity that feels so permanent tonight is, in this exact moment, in motion, the way everything in you and around you is always in motion, whether or not you can feel it happening. Consider that there is not a single cell in your body that will be there in a few years' time. Consider that the person lying here tonight is, quite literally, not the same collection of matter that loved this person in the first place. and will not be the same collection of matter that eventually thinks of them with a soft, distant fondness instead of this sharp ache. You are a river, not a stone. Everything about you flows. Your body flows, your cells replacing themselves quietly in the dark. Your mind flows, its moods and certainties shifting like tides you can't see the mechanism of. And this pain, which feels so solid, is flowing too. It has to. It's made of the same impermanent stuff as everything else. There has never once been a feeling in the whole history of feelings that stayed exactly the same forever. Yours will not be the first. Think back, if you can bear it gently, to a pain from your past that once felt exactly this permanent. There was one, maybe more than one, a loss, a heartbreak, a night you were sure you'd never recover from, a person you were certain you'd never stop aching for. And here you are. You may still feel the shape of that old pain if you press on it like a scar you can find with your fingertips, but it doesn't run your nights anymore. It's softened. It moved. It became something you carry so lightly you forget it's there for weeks at a time. You didn't force that. You probably don't even remember the day it stopped hurting, because there was no such day. It just quietly changed, a little at a time, the way tides go out so slowly you can watch and never catch the exact moment the water leaves the rock. That same slow mercy is already working on tonight's pain. You can't feel it moving, just as you can't feel the tide going out if you stare at it. But leave the beach and come back in a few hours and the water is somewhere entirely different. Leave this feeling alone, stop gripping it, stop checking it, stop measuring whether it's smaller yet, and come back to yourself in a few weeks, a few months, and you'll find the water has moved without your permission and without your effort, exactly as it always does. The old traditions all noticed this, in their different words. There's a phrase the Buddhists return to again and again, that all things are impermanent, arising and passing, and they don't mean it as a sad thing. They mean it as the deepest possible comfort. Nothing stays, and that includes the hard things. The same law that means the good moments couldn't last is the law that guarantees this painful one can't last either. There's a Japanese phrase for the gentle, bittersweet ache of knowing that nothing lasts, a soft sadness at the passing of things. But notice the softness in it. It isn't despair. It's a kind of tenderness toward a world where everything is always leaving, including, mercifully, our pain. The falling leaf is sad because it's beautiful and it's going, but the hard winter is bearable for the very same reason. It, too, is going. So even the person in your mind will change, not because you'll force them out, but because everything changes. Not tonight, and I won't insult you by promising tomorrow, but the sharpness will dull. The daily ache will become a weekly one, then a rare one. The face that fills your whole mind right now will become a face you can call up when you choose to, rather than one that ambushes you in the dark. This is not a betrayal of what they meant to you, it's just the tide doing what tides do. You will not always feel the way you feel tonight, and that is not a loss. That is the quiet promise built into the nature of things. And here is the part that lets you finally rest. If the feeling is already moving on its own, then you don't have to move it. You don't have to do anything about it tonight at all. You don't have to figure out how to get over them. You don't have to solve the ache or accelerate the healing or force yourself to feel better by morning. The healing is not your job. It's already happening underneath you, the way your body is already healing 100 small things tonight without any instruction from you. Your only job, if you even have one, is to not get in its way. To stop reopening the wound so it can close. To stop gripping the water so the tide can go out. To lie here and let the slow, patient, impersonal mercy of change do exactly what it has done for every human being who ever lay awake missing someone, which is, eventually, quietly, to carry the pain out to sea. You are not stuck. It only feels that way at night. You are a river that thinks it's a stone, an outgoing tide that can't feel itself moving. But you are moving. You have been moving this whole time, even tonight, even in the hours that felt most frozen. And you can trust that movement enough to stop fighting it, and to close your eyes, and to let the water carry you a little further from the rock while you sleep. There's a particular thought that likes to come in the smallest hours, and it's one of the cruelest, so let's meet it directly and take some of its power away. The thought goes something like this: if they left, or if they pulled away, or if they chose someone else, or if they simply stopped, then it must mean something about me. It must mean I wasn't enough. Not interesting enough, not attractive enough, not lovable enough, not worth staying for. And once the mind gets hold of that thread, it pulls, and the whole night unravels into a quiet trial in which you are both the accused and the judge, and the verdict is always the same and always against you. I want to gently take that thread out of your hands because it rests on a mistake, a very common and very human mistake. And once you see the mistake clearly, the whole cruel trial loses its footing. The mistake is believing that another person's leaving is information about your worth. It isn't. It never was. A person's choices are made inside their own weather, their own history, their own fears, their own limits, their own particular moment in a life you can only ever see part of. When someone can't stay or won't, it tells you about their capacity, their readiness, their wounds, the story they were living in. It does not measure your value any more than a person who can't hear music is measuring the worth of the song. The song is still the song. Some people simply aren't able at that moment in their lives to hear it. That's about their ears, not the music. You've done this yourself, if you're honest. There have been people who cared for you, who were kind, who might have been good for you, and you couldn't return it. Not because they weren't enough. Something in you wasn't ready, or wasn't drawn, or was still tangled in someone else, or simply didn't feel the pull for reasons you couldn't fully explain even to yourself. You didn't sit down and calculate their worth and find them lacking. It just wasn't right in a way that had far more to do with you than with them. Extend that same understanding to the person you're missing. Their inability to stay was their weather. It was never the measurement of your worth that your mind has been treating it as all night. And here's something worth sitting with. Your worth was never on the table to begin with. It isn't the kind of thing that can be raised or lowered by whether one particular person chose to stay. You are not worth more on the days you're loved and less on the days you're left. That would make your value a thing that flickers on and off depending on other people's decisions, and that's no kind of worth at all. The truth is quieter and steadier than that. You have worth simply as a living, feeling person, in the same plain way that everyone does. And no one's arrival ever created it, and no one's departure can take it away. It sat there, whole, before they came. It sat there, whole, the entire time they were with you. And it's sitting there, whole, right now, in this bed, in the dark, entirely untouched by their leaving, whether or not you can feel it tonight. The reason it doesn't feel that way is that we let the people closest to us hold up a mirror, and we mistake the mirror for the truth. When they loved you, you saw yourself as lovable in their eyes, and it felt wonderful. And you started to believe the mirror was showing you the fact of you. So when they left and the mirror went dark, it felt like the fact of you went dark too. But it didn't. The mirror left. You're still here. You were never the reflection in someone else's eyes. You were always the one being reflected, and you go on existing fully, whether or not anyone is currently holding up a glass to show you. So when the trial starts tonight, when the mind begins building its case that their leaving proves you weren't enough, you don't have to win the argument. You just have to notice that the whole court is built on a false premise and quietly decline to take the stand. Their leaving is not evidence about you. It's a fact about a road that turned, about two people who couldn't, in the end, walk the same way for reasons that live mostly inside them. You can let that be sad without letting it be a verdict. You can miss them terribly and still know, underneath the missing, that nothing about their absence subtracts a single thing from what you are. You were enough the whole time. You are enough right now, lying here, missing someone, unable to sleep at what feels like your least impressive and most undone. Enough is not a performance you passed or failed. It's not something you earn back by being missed in return, or by finally getting over them, or by becoming someone they'd regret losing. It's just true, quietly, underneath all of it, the way the ground is under the floor, whether or not you're thinking about it. And you can rest on that ground tonight. It will hold you. It always has, even on the nights you were sure it had given way. Let me offer you a gentle question, the kind you can turn over slowly as you lie here, with no pressure to answer it tonight. When you miss this person, what is it exactly that you miss? It sounds like a strange question because the obvious answer is them, of course. I miss them. But if you look a little closer, and you can do this softly, without prying, you might find that what aches is not always the person as they actually were. Often it's something a little different, and seeing the difference can loosen the grip. Sometimes what we miss most is not the person, but the future we'd built around them in our minds. We are always doing this, quietly, without noticing. We meet someone, we care for them, and almost immediately the mind begins constructing a whole imagined life, 100 small futures, the trips you'd take, the version of yourself you'd become alongside them, the ordinary Sunday mornings years from now, the way you pictured growing older with them in it. Most of this was never spoken, maybe never even fully conscious, but it was real in the way that hopes are real, and when the person left, all of it left with them. And so, you're not only grieving a person, you're grieving an entire future that lived only in your imagination, a whole life that was never going to be certain but felt for a while like it was coming. That kind of grief is real and it deserves to be honored, but it helps enormously to know that's what it is. Because a future is not a person. You cannot lose an imagined future the way you lose a set of keys, something that was solid and is now gone. The future you're grieving never actually existed. It was a beautiful possibility, and possibilities are precious, but they're not the same as things that were taken from you. When you realize that some of tonight's ache is grief for a life that lived only in the mind's projections, the ache doesn't vanish, but it changes texture. It becomes softer, more like the wistfulness of a lovely dream fading on waking than the sharp robbery it felt like a moment ago. You're not being punished. You're just saying goodbye to a picture you painted, and it's all right to have loved the picture, and it's all right to let it fade. And sometimes, if you look even closer, what you miss is not the person and not the future, but who you got to be when you were with them. This is one of the quietest and most overlooked kinds of missing. There was a version of you that came alive in their presence. Maybe you were funnier with them, or softer, or more open, or more seen. Maybe they drew out a part of you that you loved and don't quite know how to reach on your own. And when they left, it can feel as though that version of you left too, as though they took the best part of you with them when they went. So you reach for them, night after night. But underneath the reaching, what you're really longing for is yourself. The self you were allowed to be in their light. Here is the tender and hopeful truth about that. They didn't take that part of you when they left. They couldn't have. It was never theirs. It was always yours. They were simply the conditions under which it came out to play, the way sunlight is the condition under which a flower opens. But the flower was always in the seed. The capacity to be open, to be tender, to be funny and alive and deeply yourself that lived in you before they arrived. And it lives in you now, dormant maybe, waiting for the right warmth, but entirely intact. You will feel it again, with someone else perhaps, or in some season of your own life you can't yet see. The part of you that you think they took is lying quietly inside you at this very moment, and no one can carry it off because it was never separate from you to begin with. So as you lie here missing them, you might gently ask, without needing an answer, is it the person I miss right now, or the future I imagined, or the self I got to be? Sometimes it's all three, braided together so tightly they feel like one thing, but even beginning to feel the separate strands can bring a strange relief, because two of those three strands are yours, and always were. The future was your own hope, which you can grieve, and then, someday, hope again. The self was your own depth, which never left you. Only the first strand, the actual person, is truly gone, and even that grief is bearable once you stop mistaking it for the loss of your own future and your own soul. You lost less than it feels like you lost. That's the quiet thing I want to leave you with here. It feels tonight as though a whole world went out of the door with them. but so much of that world was always inside you, on loan to the feeling of them, and it's still inside you now, waiting patiently for you to remember it's there. The person is gone. You are not. Your future is not. Your capacity to love and be loved is not. All of that stayed. All of that is lying right here in the dark with you, whole and unharmed, ready for whatever comes next. Once you've rested, once you've slept, once the morning has come the way it always does. Here's something about the person in your mind that's worth knowing, because it can quietly loosen a great deal. The person you're lying awake thinking about is not, strictly speaking, a real person. Not anymore. The one in your head tonight is a creation of your memory, and memory is not a recording. It's a storyteller. And like all storytellers, it edits, it emphasizes, it leaves things out, and it shapes the character to fit the feeling you're carrying. We tend to imagine memory works like a camera, capturing what happened and playing it back faithfully. It doesn't. Every time you recall something, you rebuild it, and every time you rebuild it, you change it a little, coloring it with how you feel right now. So the person you missed tonight has been quietly reworked by longing into something smoother and brighter than they ever actually were. The mind, aching for them, gathers up the warmest moments, the best light, the way they looked when they were happy with you, and it edits out the friction, the boredom, the small daily disappointments, the ways they let you down, the reasons it wasn't always easy. It builds you a highlight reel and then plays it at 3 in the morning and says, "Look what you lost. Look how perfect it was. How will you ever find that again?" But it wasn't a highlight reel when you were living it. It was a real relationship with a real, whole, flawed human being who had bad moods and irritating habits and moments of unkindness and a whole inner life that had nothing to do with you. If they hurt you, the longing conveniently softens the memory of the hurt. If they left, the mind quietly forgets the parts that were already broken before they went. You end up grieving a person who is partly invented, an idealized figure assembled by your own loneliness, and no wonder that figure feels irreplaceable. Nothing in the real world can compete with a person the mind has polished into gold. The reverse can happen too, and it's just as much an edit. Sometimes, especially if the ending was painful, the mind does the opposite. It sharpens them into a villain, gathering every slight and cruelty into a case, erasing the tenderness, the reasons you loved them, the ways they were only human and afraid. And then you lie awake in anger, replaying the wrongs, and that grips you just as tightly as longing does, maybe tighter. Whether the mind gilds them or vilifies them, it's doing the same thing. It's giving you a cartoon, not a person, a figure flattened into all good or all bad, because a flattened figure is easier to obsess over than a complicated one. There's a kind of freedom in gently letting the real person back in. Not to torture yourself with their flaws and not to guilt yourself out of your anger, but simply to let them be a whole, ordinary human again. Someone who was kind sometimes and thoughtless other times. Someone who loved you in the ways they were able and failed you in the ways they weren't. Someone carrying their own fears and history, doing their best and their worst, just like you, just like everyone. When you let the gold statue turn back into a person and let the villain return back into a person, the grip loosens because you're no longer haunted by a myth. You're just remembering someone real, and real people, however much we loved them, are human-sized. They fit in the hand. They can be set down. This isn't about diminishing what they meant to you. The love was real even though the memory is edited. What you shared mattered even though your mind has since retouched the pictures. Seeing them clearly doesn't erase the good. It just returns them to their actual proportions, so they stop looming over your nights like something more than human. The person who could keep you awake forever is the idealized one, the myth, the highlight reel. The real one, seen whole, was always someone you could eventually make peace with, precisely because they were only a person, as bounded and flawed and ordinary as you, doing their best in a life that was mostly not about you at all. So the next time the highlight reel starts to play tonight, all their best moments strung together to prove how much you've lost, you might gently remind yourself, this is an edit. The real thing had shadows in it too. And the next time the case for the prosecution begins, all their wrongs assembled to keep you burning, you might gently remind yourself of that as well. This is an edit. The real person was frightened and human, not a monster. Let the retouching soften. Let them come back down to human size. It's easier to sleep beside a memory of an ordinary person than beside a myth, whether the myth is a golden one or a dark one. And what you loved or are still angry at was always, underneath the story, just a person like you. That's a much lighter thing to carry into sleep. There's a particular kind of night where the thinking turns into an urge, and the urge has a direction, and the direction is toward your phone. You know the one. It's late, and the missing has built, and somewhere in the ache a voice says, just reach out. Just send something. Just check their profile, see if they're online, see if anything's changed. Just say the thing you've been rehearsing. It won't hurt. It might even help. And your hand actually moves, or wants to, toward the glow on the nightstand, as if touching it could touch them. Let's sit with that urge for a moment, gently, without acting on it, because understanding it takes away most of its pull. The urge to reach out at midnight is not really a desire to talk to them. Look closely and you'll see what it actually is. It's the loop looking for relief. It's the open wound reaching for the one thing that would, for about 10 minutes, make it stop aching, the way any pain makes you reach for the thing that once soothed it. It feels like love, or like unfinished business, or like an important thing that simply must be said. But underneath, it's the same reaching hand that returns to the empty gum where the tooth used to be. It's not seeking connection, it's seeking the end of the ache. And the phone at this hour is a mirage of that ending. Because here's what almost always happens when the reaching hand wins at midnight. Either they don't respond, and the silence is a fresh wound on top of the old one, and now you lie awake watching two dots that never come, feeling the humiliation of having reached. Or they do respond, and the 10 minutes of relief costs you a week of new loops, new material, new things to replay, because you've reopened the very door you'd been so slowly closing. Almost nothing said at 2 a.m, out of the sharp edge of longing, ever helps the person who sends it. The morning version of you, the rested one, knows this completely. It's only the midnight version, raw and reaching, who forgets. So if the urge comes tonight, try this instead of acting on it. Don't fight it, because fighting it just makes the hand grip harder. Just notice it, name it kindly, and let it be there without obeying it. There's the reaching, you might say to yourself. There's the part of me that wants the ache to stop. Of course it does. And then gently keep your hand where it is, warm under the blanket, and let the urge rise and crest and fall, the way every urge does if you don't feed it. Urges are like waves. They feel at the peak as though they'll keep climbing forever until you have no choice but to act. But no wave climbs forever. Every single one crests and falls back if you can just stay still through the peak without grabbing your phone. Ride this one out, let it rise, let it be almost unbearable, and then feel it slowly begin to recede, all on its own, without you having done anything at all except not move. And notice what you've proven to yourself each time you ride one out. You've proven that you can feel the pull toward them and not be dragged by it. That the urge is not a command. That there's a you lying quietly in the dark, who can watch even the strongest reaching rise and fall and still choose stillness. That's not deprivation. That's freedom, the real kind, the kind that grows a little stronger every night you practice it. The reaching hand is not your master, it's just a wave. And you, the wide, quiet sky we talked about, the one watching the weather, you can let it break over you and pass and stay exactly where you are, warm and still, and slowly drifting down toward sleep. There's nothing you need to send tonight. There's no message that will close this at this hour, no words that will finally make it right, no relief on the other side of that glowing screen that isn't a trap dressed up as an ending. Leave the phone dark, leave the door closed, let the reaching hand rest along with the rest of you. Whatever you feel you need to say to them, you can say to the dark instead softly, and let the dark hold it, and it will do you far more good than any message ever could. There's a thought that stings in its own special way, and it deserves a moment of its own because it keeps so many people awake. It's the thought that while you lie here, undone, missing them with your whole body, they are somewhere out there, completely fine, sleeping soundly, not thinking of you at all, already moved on, maybe already with someone else, living a life you're no longer part of and don't even cross the edges of. It feels deeply unfair. You're paying such a heavy price for this, and they, it seems, are paying nothing. And the imagined image of their peaceful, indifferent sleep can twist the knife harder than almost anything. So let's look at that image honestly, because it's mostly a fiction your mind has built, and it's built it out of the worst possible materials. The truth is, you have no idea how they are. None. You're picturing their inner life at this exact hour, based on nothing but your own fear at its most raw. Maybe they are sleeping fine, or maybe they're lying awake too, carrying their own version of this, full of things they'll never say. Maybe they moved on cleanly, or maybe the calm you imagine is a performance stretched thin over their own quiet ache. You simply cannot know, and the version your mind insists on, the one where they're perfectly happy and you're the only one suffering, is not knowledge. It's just the cruelest guess available. chosen precisely because it hurts. But let's go further, because even if it were true, even if they are completely at peace and never think of you, notice what that would actually mean. It would mean their healing has nothing to do with your healing. Their peace does not require your suffering, and your suffering does not earn you anything in return. You are not in a contest where the one who hurts longest wins, or the one who moves on first loses. There's no scoreboard. Two people can leave the same relationship and grieve on completely different timelines for completely different reasons, and neither timeline is a verdict on how much it mattered. That they might be sleeping while you're awake is not evidence that they loved you less, or that you loved too much, or that you're behind, or failing. It just means you're two different people, healing at two different speeds, which is the only way people have ever healed. And here's the part worth holding on to. Their being fine, if they are, takes nothing from you. Your pain is not smaller because theirs is over. Your pain is exactly the size it is, shaped by your own heart, your own history, your own way of loving, and it's yours to move through at your own pace, entirely regardless of what they're doing tonight. Measuring your inside against their imagined outside is a game you can only ever lose because you're comparing everything you feel to a picture you invented of someone you can no longer see. Set the comparison down. It isn't information. It's just another way the mind keeps you awake, dressed up as fairness. You don't need them to be suffering for your love to have been real. You don't need them to miss you for your grief to be valid. And you don't need to match their pace, whatever it is, to be doing this right. Let them be however they are, out there in a night you can't see into. It has nothing to do with the work happening quietly in you. Your only task is here, in this bed, with this heart, on this timeline which is yours alone and answers to no one. So stop watching the imagined window into their peaceful sleep. There's nothing there but your own fear projected onto a wall. Turn back to the warm dark of your own room, your own breath, your own slow and honest healing, and let them sleep or not sleep in a life that is no longer any weight you have to carry. So much of the loop is a search for a why. Why did they leave? Why did it change? Why wasn't it enough? Why did they say that, do that, choose that? The mind circles the question like a key ring with no key that fits, trying door after door, certain that somewhere there's an explanation that would finally let it rest. If I could just understand why, it says, then I could put this down. And so it keeps searching, night after night, for an answer that would make the pain make sense. I want to say something to that searching part of you as kindly as I can. The answer may never come, and even if it did, it would not do what you think it would do. Some things don't have a clean why, or at least not one you'll ever be given. People change for reasons they don't understand themselves. Relationships end in a slow accumulation of small things that no single explanation could ever capture. Even if the person you're missing sat down across from you tonight and tried, honestly, to explain exactly why, they probably couldn't, because they don't fully know either. We are mysteries to ourselves. The tidy reason your mind is hunting for, the one clear explanation that would unlock everything, most likely doesn't exist. There is no key on the ring because the door was never the kind that opens with a key. It's the kind that only closes, slowly, when you stop standing in front of it, demanding to be let through. And here's the harder, freer truth. Even if you found the perfect answer, it wouldn't heal you. We imagine that understanding equals peace, that if we could just know why, the ache would finally release. But think of the times you have known exactly why something ended. Did the knowing take the pain away? Usually not. You can understand completely why someone had to go and still miss them with your whole body. Understanding lives in one part of you and grief lives in another, and the one does not reach down and switch off the other. So the search for why, even when it succeeds, leads to a locked room where you expected an open field. The answer was never the thing that was going to set you free. What sets you free is something the mind resists with everything it has, letting the question stay open. Not answered, not solved, just held, gently, without the desperate need to close it. There's a poet who once wrote a letter to a young man who was full of unanswerable questions, and he told him not to search so hard for answers he wasn't yet ready to live, but instead to try to love the questions themselves, to be patient with everything unresolved in his heart, and to live the questions now, trusting that he might, without noticing, gradually live his way into the answers on some distant day. Live the questions, not solve them tonight. Live them. Let them be open rooms you walk through rather than locked doors you batter at. Imagine what it would be to stop demanding an answer tonight, to say softly to the searching part of you, I don't know why, I may never know why, and I'm going to let that be all right. Feel how much energy that frees. So much of your exhaustion is the effort of the search itself, the endless trying of keys, the refusal to leave the door until it opens. When you set down the demand to understand, when you allow the why to remain a mystery, the searching can finally stop, and with it, a great deal of the noise that's been keeping you awake. You don't have to understand something in order to survive it. You don't have to solve a loss in order to heal from it. People heal from things they never understood all the time. Healing was never conditional on an explanation. There's a peace that lives on the far side of not knowing, and it's deeper than the peace you were hoping to find through answers. It's the peace of a person who has stopped needing the universe to explain itself before they'll allow themselves to rest. Things happen that we don't understand. People come and go for reasons beyond our reach. The rain falls on the just and the unjust without explaining itself, and we don't lie awake demanding to know why the rain chose our field. We let the mystery be a mystery, and we go on. And somehow that's more bearable than any answer would have been. So tonight, you're allowed to not know. You're allowed to have a question in your heart with no answer beside it, and to stop treating that as an emergency. Let the why stay open. Let it be one of those locked rooms the poet spoke of, and stop pressing your whole weight against the door. Turn around. Walk back to your bed. Lie down inside the not knowing as if it were a wide, quiet room you're allowed to rest in. Because it is. And the mystery you've been fighting all night turns out to be, once you stop fighting it, one of the softest places there is to finally close your eyes. There's an old practice of well-wishing that I'd like to offer you now, softened for a night like this. It comes from a very old tradition of quietly wishing peace, first to yourself, then outward to others, even the ones who are hard to think about. You don't have to believe anything for it to work. It isn't magic. It's simply a way of turning the heart in a gentler direction than the one it's been stuck in all night. And the heart, like anything, tends to go where it's pointed. Let's begin with the harder direction, and then come home to the easier one. Bring the person to mind gently, the one you can't stop thinking about, and instead of the usual loop, the longing or the hurt or the argument, try offering them something plain and kind. Not because they deserve it, not because they earned it, not even because you fully feel it yet, but just as an experiment in where the heart can go. Something like, I hope you're at peace. I hope you're well, wherever you are. I hope your life is gentle with you. Notice what rises when you try that. Maybe resistance, maybe a flash of, but they don't deserve my kindness, or how can I wish them well when they hurt me, or a fresh wave of longing so strong it aches. All of that is welcome. You don't have to force the good wish past the resistance. You're just noticing that another direction exists, that the heart is capable of something other than gripping and grieving. And here's the quiet secret of it. Wishing them well is not for them. They'll never know you did it. It's for you. Because a heart that's wishing peace, even clumsily, even through gritted teeth, is a heart that has loosened its grip for a moment. You can't clench and bless at the same time. The blessing, however small, is the fist opening. That's why we do it. Not to reach them, but to free the hand that's been holding on so tightly it's gone numb. If wishing them well is too much tonight, and some nights it truly is, then don't. Skip them entirely. There's no obligation here, and forcing a good wish you don't feel just adds another quiet lie to the pile. Come instead to the direction that matters most and that we're worst at. Turn the well-wishing toward yourself. This is the one people forget, and it's the one you need most as you lie here. Offer yourself the same plain kindness. I hope I find some peace tonight. I hope I'm gentle with myself. I hope I can rest. May I be at ease. May I be held. May I sleep. Say it slowly and mean it as best you can, even if part of you feels awkward or undeserving. Especially then, because the person who's kept you awake with self-blame all these nights, the one running the trial, passing the verdicts, deciding you weren't enough and should be over this by now, that person needs your kindness far more than the one who left ever did. You have been so hard on yourself in the dark. You've spoken to yourself in a tone you'd never use with someone you loved. So, tonight, be the friend you'd be to anyone else in this exact pain. If someone you cared about lay beside you right now, sleepless and aching over a lost love, you wouldn't tell them what's wrong with you. Why can't you get over this? You'd smooth their hair back and say, "Of course it hurts. You loved them? It's all right. Rest now. I've got you." Say that to yourself. You're allowed. You're the one who needs it. There's a real tenderness in realizing that the person most starved of your compassion through all these long nights has been you. You've poured so much feeling towards someone who isn't even here and left yourself, the one actually lying in this bed, cold and unattended. So let some of the warmth turn homeward now. Let yourself be the one you comfort tonight. Wrap the good wishes around your own tired body like a second blanket. May I rest. May I be at peace. May I be gentle with this heart that only ever loved too well. And if, from that warm and steady place, you find you can send a little peace outward again, to them, to whoever else drifts through your mind, to everyone else lying awake tonight over their own lost person, then let it flow. There are so many of us, in so many dark rooms, missing someone right now. You are far less alone in this than the night makes you feel. Somewhere, many someones are lying exactly as you are, wishing they could stop thinking about a face, longing to rest. Send them peace too if you can. May we all be at ease. May we all set down what we've been carrying. May we all tonight finally sleep. There's a strange comfort in widening the circle like that, in remembering that this ache is one of the most human things there is, shared by nearly everyone who has ever loved. You're not failing at something everyone else has mastered. You're doing the oldest, most universal thing a heart can do. And you can do it gently, with kindness for yourself, and let that kindness carry you down toward rest. When someone leaves your life, they leave a space. You feel it as a wound at first, a raw and specific emptiness, shaped exactly like them. The side of the bed, the name you don't text anymore, the silence where their voice used to be. And the mind treats that space as damage, as something that must be either filled again immediately or grieved forever. But there's a third thing a space can become, given time and a little gentleness, and it's worth knowing about tonight because it's where all of this is quietly heading. A space can become room. Right now it feels like a hole, but holes, left alone, don't stay holes. They become openings. The absence that aches tonight is, though you can't feel it yet, also a clearing, a place in your life where something new will eventually have room to grow, precisely because it's empty. Every person who has ever loved again after a loss did it in a space that once felt like nothing but a wound. The clearing had to come first. It always feels like devastation before it feels like possibility. And there's no skipping the first part to get to the second. But the second part is real, and it's coming. And the very emptiness that hurts so much right now is the ground it will grow from. I'm not rushing you toward it. You don't have to fill the space tonight, or want to, or even believe that you ever will. In fact, trying to fill it too fast out of the sheer panic of the emptiness is how people end up carrying the old ache into new arms. The space needs to be allowed to just be a space for a while, to breathe, to be honored as the place where something real used to live. You're allowed to sit in the clearing and miss what stood there for as long as you need, without any pressure to plant something new before you're ready. But it helps on a night like this to know that the emptiness is not permanent damage. It's fallow ground. It's resting the way a field rests over winter, not dead, just quiet, gathering itself for a spring you can't see from here. And notice gently that your life did not stop when they left it, even though it felt as though it should have. The mornings kept coming. You kept eating, working, answering messages, putting one foot in front of the other, even on the days it felt pointless. There is a whole life still happening around the space and around you right now, tonight. People who know you, small things you still love or used to love and will love again. A version of your days that has nothing to do with this person and never did. The loop is so loud that it convinces you the missing is the only thing happening in your life. But it isn't. It's one thread, a heavy one, running through a life that is still full of other threads, most of them quietly intact, waiting patiently for your attention to come back to them once the ache has loosened its hold. Part of letting the mind rest is remembering that you are more than this loss. You were a whole person before they arrived, with your own interests, your own friendships, your own small joys and private curiosities, your own relationship with the morning light and your own favorite quiet things. All of that is still there. It got crowded out, for a while, by the sheer volume of the missing, the way a loud sound can make you forget there's music playing softly underneath it. But it didn't go anywhere. Your life is still yours. It's larger than this chapter. And as the ache softens, in the weeks and months ahead, you'll feel yourself expanding back into it, remembering the things that are yours alone, filling out again into the full shape of a person rather than the narrowed, aching point the loss made you feel like tonight. So let the space be a space, without deciding tonight whether it's a wound or a clearing. It can be both for now. It can be tender and full of possibility at the same time. You don't have to fill it and you don't have to grieve it forever. You only have to let it be and trust that emptiness in a living thing is never the end of the story. It's the pause before the next thing. It's winter, not death, and winters, however long and dark they feel from the inside, have never once failed to end. You have so much life left, and so much of it will be good, in ways you cannot picture from inside tonight's dark. You don't have to believe that yet. You only have to let it be possible. And you can rest now inside that possibility, in the quiet clearing, in the resting field, while everything that's still yours waits patiently for the morning. And now, as the night settles in around you, let's begin to let all of this go soft at the edges. You don't need to remember any of it. You don't need to carry a single idea from tonight into tomorrow. The words were never meant to be held on to. They were just company for a while, a hand on the shoulder in the dark, something gentle to keep you company until sleep was ready to come. You can let them dissolve now, the way you're letting everything else dissolve. Come back one last time to where we started, to the feeling that was here when you first lay down, the name moving through your mind, the face, the conversation that wouldn't stop replaying. Notice it now, gently. Is it still as sharp as it was an hour ago? Perhaps it is, a little. Perhaps it's softened without your noticing. Either way, something has changed, even if it's only this. You're no longer fighting it. You're no longer lying here believing that something is wrong with you for feeling this way. You understand now, at least a little, that this is a mind doing what minds do. Trying to finish something unfinished, standing guard because it loves you, carrying someone across a river it crossed long ago. There is nothing broken here. There never was. There's only a tender heart doing the oldest and most human thing there is. So let's set it down now, together, for the night. Not forever, if forever is too much. just for these next few hours. You can pick it all back up in the morning if you truly need to, but right now, in this dark, there is nothing you have to hold. You don't have to solve it tonight. You don't have to understand why they left, or whether they think of you, or how you'll feel in a month. You don't have to figure out how to stop missing them. You don't have to get over anyone by morning. You don't have to close the loop or answer the question or win the argument or carry them one more step. You don't have to be anything other than what you are right now, which is a tired person in a warm bed who loved someone and is allowed to rest. Let the person rest in your mind the way you'd let a sleeping house go quiet. They can be there. You don't have to push them out. You've stopped needing to. They can simply be a soft presence in the background, no longer something you grip or grieve or fight, just a memory among all your other memories allowed to settle into its place while you settle into yours. Feel your body again, held by the bed. Feel the weight of you sinking down, fully supported, nothing to hold up, nowhere to be. Feel the warmth of the blanket, the cool of the air, the slow and faithful movement of your own breath, which has been with you all along, asking nothing. There is only this, now the dark room, the quiet, the soft weight of a day finally over, and a mind that is allowed at last to stop its watching and lie down beside you. If my voice has helped quiet your mind tonight, then I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you'll come back on the nights you need a softer place to land. This is a quiet corner made for exactly these hours, and staying a while means I can keep leaving a light on in the dark for you and for everyone else who comes here to rest. But there is nothing you need to do about any of that right now. Right now there is only sleep drawing closer, and you drifting gently toward it. So rest now, you've carried enough for long enough. The river is behind you, the loop can wait, the question can stay open, the person can rest, and the guard can rest, and the part of you that has been so tired for so long can finally rest. There is nothing left to do tonight. There is nothing left to fix. There is no one you have to be. Just breathe and let go and sleep. You're safe. You're held. You're already home. Good night.